Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Voices Atlas podcast. Woo! For a very special episode today. Everyone get excited, get hyped. Woo!
Yeah! Excitement!
Excitement.
Excitement.
I would scream, but I don't want to hurt people's ears.
Before we get started, we're just going to make these intros really quick. Make sure to check out the Voice of Atlas podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and on here. If you're here right now, thank you so much for making the effort to be here. We're very excited because today we have a very special guest. We have Cherish Chen. Please everybody welcome Cherish Chen, co-writer of Radiant Black and lead writer of Radiant Red. So everybody, please, round of applause.
Get that excitement going.
Yes.
Applause to you all for having me.
Thank you
All
so
the applause.
much.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Make sure to check us out on all those platforms. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all that jazz. We want to really get into the cut of this.
Yeah.
But things that we don't want to cut out is how's your been Oops, sorry about that.
You want to repeat that?
Yeah. Things we don't want to cut out, except for that, we'll fix it in post. Is how's everybody's been so far? How's you been, everybody? Laiba, you want to start with us?
Oh, I can't believe you started with me.
Yeah, show me the ropes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a really good bin. I have a new mic, obviously. That was amazingly gifted by Victoria, Nick, and Johnny.
Yeah, she was crying.
Yeah, they were being really sneaky.
Okay, correction. Nick was being sneaky. I was being stupid because I couldn't remember that we did that for you for a moment when you asked me.
After our last podcast, Nick went to go sign off, and he was like, "Okay, tell me when it happens," and I was like, "Excuse me?" And then they just kept
Almost
asking,
gave it
they're
away.
Like, hey. Yeah, they're like, "Hey, when you get home, can you film an unboxing for the Radiant Black comic? Because I got it on Amazon." And then I saw another box, and it was a mic, and I was like, "This is addressed to my name and the place I live." So I'm like, "Someone's stalking me." Then they revealed that they sent it to me,
of that.
and I cried.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a nice gift. That is really nice.
Yeah, we wanted to up our game a little bit, but also Laiba was the only one without a studio mic, so we wanted to make sure.
And I'll still sound worse than her.
Yeah. But we're glad you like it, Laiba. Yeah,
I do. I love it a lot.
Laiba, you and I have matching mics. We were both silver Yetis.
Ooh.
We're mic twins.
Exactly.
All right.
As for my bin, I've just been working. I got called a slur though at work, so that was fun. I won't go into the details, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
Not okay.
It's not okay, but you know what? It made for very interesting stories.
Yeah,
So
it's always a good
true.
dinner story to feel a little something.
you get a bond with
Yeah.
other
It's its
people.
own currency one day. Yeah, the
Yeah.
story, I guess.
Yeah, and my bin has been ecstatic. I've been thinking about this day for the last week. I've been like, oh man, I'm gonna mess this up somehow.
Oh,
I'm gonna ruin
boy.
it.
Yeah, Nick was freaking out when you
Yeah.
emailed us back, by the way.
Mhm.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I was,
He definitely was.
I was like, well, like we were at a point in our podcast where like we should really start finding opportunities, start emailing people. And I just finished issue 12 of Reading Black, and I was looking through the artists and everybody involved in the book. I was like, oh, Cherish Chen did issue 6, and she's Asian, we talk about Asian representation. She would be great on this podcast, absolutely. And I was like, okay, well, I found your website, emailed you, and I was like, I was like, I think I emailed you at midnight. I was on my computer.
I think it was midnight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, shot in the dark, whatever. And I woke up the next morning and you had replied. And I was at work. No, I was in Trader Joe's. And I was like, I messaged everybody, and I was like, I'm having a little bit of an imposter
Crazy.
You always have a freak out in public. I just
I
realized.
do, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, my fiance was talking to her friend, and I was just standing next to her, and I was like, I don't know. The orange chicken's $4.99. We should probably get some.
Yeah, get that orange chicken. It's
Yeah, orange
delicious
chicken.
at Trader Joe's.
Yeah, it is good, especially on a night when you don't want to cook. Like tonight, I'm probably not going to cook tonight.
Oh my
Actually,
gosh.
since you reminded me, I also met Paul Sun-Yun Lee
Oh
this
yeah.
weekend.
Ooh.
So,
Oh, yeah, you
so we will
did.
add that to my bin of good stuff.
That
So,
was we're having a
hell
good
yeah.
week,
Very
yeah.
nice.
My good bins.
Nick, you're so silly. It's like it's funny that you're so excited. It's cool to be here. Honestly, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm always excited to meet new creators who are like just putting something together, you
Mhm.
know. So I'm like, I'm happy to be here. So what's in my bin? Like, so it's
Yeah.
like just what's going on.
Yeah, what's going on? How you
Yeah.
been?
What's going on?
Yeah.
I think you
how
want to
are you
highlight.
feeling?
I'm good. My bin's good.
That's good.
I'm mostly just working. I'm writing. So you know, you'll see the fruits of the labor at one point, but hopefully. But yeah, no, I'm mostly just writing. You know, just very chill, enjoying the stuff I'm working on right now.
That's good.
So, yeah, it's nice. It's kind of, I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge once said like writers need to be left alone when you're, you know, because you
Yeah.
have like you just need a lot of alone time when you're writing.
Yeah.
So like I've been
Yes,
kind of
100%.
enjoying that
That's good.
and getting work done. So yeah, things
Yeah,
are good.
Super exciting. That's so much fun. Everybody, thank you guys all for being here. It's a very special event. Cherish, Chen, you are our very first industry professional on the show.
Yeah.
So that means a
I
ton.
know.
Especially like being like an Asian person and a woman. Like that's something we always talk about here on our show. We're always like trying to give a platform to voices or a platform to people who are like in the industry or ideas that resonate with the rest of us. You kind of froze up on Zoom. Are you okay? Is she still there?
Hold on, I think it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. She's still
There
there.
you go.
Hold on.
Okay, we're
I'm
good.
a little
Oh,
frozen.
there
Am
it
I still
is.
here?
Yeah.
Yes.
we're
My
good.
internet is really bad. I
Okay.
can connect to something else, but
Oh no,
just
you're
as
good.
hopefully we're okay.
No, we're fine. Yeah.
Okay, you said as an Asian American woman, that's what I caught.
Yeah. So you know,
Yeah.
you being like in the industry and like representing, you know, different kinds of people. It's something we always talk about here on the show. So we're really like happy and excited to have you here today. Yeah, it means a lot to us, and I'm sure it means a lot to other people for all the work you do. So thank you for all that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm honestly it's very cool to be here and you know to like be able to talk about writing this from an Asian American lens and with like other Asian American creators. I think you know a lot of the larger Radiant Black stuff, you know, we really talk about story and how it's relatable to everyone, but so I'm very excited to be able to be here and like kind of talk about it through this lens specifically
Yeah.
with you all. So yeah, I think it's cool. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
It's very
Thank
nice.
you again. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're gonna start with a couple questions we have set up for you. If we get through all of them, great. If we don't, you know what? It'll have
They
been
lovey.
Yeah, it'll have been.
We'll save it for a
very-
part 2.
Do you guys ever
There you
watch
go.
Kevin Smith? Like, they're not even stand-ups. Like, he'll do like an interview at like a panel, and he'll answer one question, and then he'll never answer any other questions.
That's the same with William Shatner.
Is
You
it
can only
really?
ask him so many because he likes to go on.
Off. Yeah,
Oh.
like
Yeah.
he'll just go off. I think
Yeah.
one special I watched of Kevin Smith is like someone asked him one question, and then he talked for like 40 minutes. And then at the very end of this Netflix thing, he's like, "Next question," and then it just ends because he only answered one question.
Love that.
If that happens,
I think it's hilarious.
yeah. If that happens, it happens. So we're gonna start off at the beginning of your journey of like being a writer and being involved with Radiant Red, because we all love Radiant Black. I think I told you I made both of these guys read it. I made Johnny reread it. And Victoria also picked up a copy, which, by the way, Victoria is not here. She is in the chat though. Victoria, we miss you very much.
We miss you.
Yeah.
Miss you.
Victoria.
Our Meili.
Always core 4 forever.
Or Mei.
Our Mei, yeah. Our real life Mei.
Aw.
Yeah.
But yeah, starting at the beginning of your journey, what are some major influences that had led you to work within the industry? What are some past works that have kind of influenced you to now that have gotten you here?
Specifically the comics industry, you mean?
It can
Or-
be like where you like either from where you started and what industry you want to go into, where you are now as a writer.
Cool.
How has any of that like contributed to like essentially writing for Radiant Red? Let's go with that.
Yeah. So let's like, I don't want to be William Shatner and just take one question forever. But
when I was born.
when I was born, so many years ago. No, well, a little bit this. I was gonna say I grew up reading a lot.
Uh-huh.
So I'm the only daughter of a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like the first few years of my life. So it's like I spent a lot of time by myself, like kind of entertaining myself. Reading was really this way of like getting to expand my worldview and horizons and everything. So I spent a lot of time reading, and that eventually progressed into writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really cool way of expressing myself, being creative, and it didn't cost anything, right? You could just pen and paper and just like talk to yourself is how I thought of writing for a long time. And so I actually, because I loved reading so much, I wanted to be an English teacher. I wanted to be like, be maybe a professor of English literature or something. And then I'm like doing the speed run of my life right now. But in high school, two things happened, which was my mom is an awesome person. She's super interesting, but she took a screenwriting class at the local community college.
Cool.
Oh.
Yeah, because she was just interested. She raised me on movies, specifically action movies.
Oh, okay.
Hell yeah.
Like my first movie memory is Cliffhanger, which is really random, not
Oh
a
my God.
child-appropriate movie to take your child to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like so I grew up watching Die Hard. All this stuff is just hilarious.
Yeah.
But she took the screenwriting class, and then one of her classmates was like a UCLA college student. And we all became like friends. My mom was writing the script with her, and I was like, oh, this is a thing you can do, like screenwriting,
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw Lord of the Rings. So that was transformative. That was a big deal for me. It's like Lord of the Rings was kind of my Star Wars in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw Return of the King like 4 times in one weekend.
Wow.
And considering that movie is like 4.5 hours,
That's
like
amazing.
you're like living in that theater. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, I really want to go into film. And then I also I applied to film schools, ended up at USC Film School.
Mm-hmm.
I studied film like you, Laiba. And
Twins.
I went in for writings. Well, I wanted to write, but then kind of coming out of film school, producing was kind of where I could find the most work, like just straight out of school. So I worked like 1,000 jobs. Kind of the first big entry point for me was actually film marketing, which is like producing movie trailers. So
cool.
kind of it's like, a lot of people end up wanting to be in the film industry and ended up in film marketing, and it's a really stable job.
Right.
And it's really cool. One of the last things that I worked on before I left and went to Rocket Jump was the Mad Max Fury Road trailer.
Oh, cool.
Those trailers were dope.
Yeah.
I remember
That's
those trailers
cool.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on that movie for like maybe 2 or 3 years, and it was so cool being part of that process. It was a movie everybody was excited to work on.
Yeah.
Is my internet okay? I'm just
cutting out a little bit. Did you want to try that
It's a little
second method?
choppy.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's a little unstable.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn my camera off.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
I'll be right back.
It's okay, no problem.
Yeah, no problem.
We will. What we're gonna do is
We can
hold
entertain
before-
people.
And Laiba, what did you think of Radiant Black after I forced you to read it?
That's a good one.
I honestly loved it.
Uh-huh.
I actually really liked it, and I was kind of annoyed that I liked it because I was reading it and I was like, "Damn it, Nick was right."
It's good.
Like, oh, it's really good.
Yeah.
And Marshall, what a
Marshall's-
snack!
Yeah.
Like, what
Marshall's-
a snack!
Oh my god.
When I read it the first time, I'll probably wait till she gets back to let her know this little story. But when I read it the first time, I was like, how I wait so long to read this? I was so confused. And like, being in like the Power Rangers Super Sentai community, I was like, I've heard of the name Radiant Black, and I was like,
I can't remember. Like, did I recommend it to you?
when we started talking, like that was like me getting back into comic books.
Yeah.
And then
Because I remember you asking me, like,
I remember
hey,
you,
do
I
you got
remember
any
asking
comic
because
recs?
I was like, I don't know, I don't think you recommended it to me because like I think I asked you specifically for like Marvel stuff, and then when I
Yeah.
went to like City Walk, someone had recommended Radiant Black to me, and I was
Okay.
like, oh, this was life changing for me. She's back. Hello, welcome
Yes.
back.
Okay. I think it's a
Hi.
lot smoother now.
Okay, good, perfect.
I was on Wi-Fi earlier, but I just connected to the Ethernet, so I think I should have just done that from the beginning.
Right.
But hopefully no more issues.
Yeah.
I think I left off at Mad Max.
Yeah,
pre-roll
Mad
trailer.
Max
Yeah.
trailer. Yeah.
You did.
Okay. So movie trailers. Then I went to Rocket Jump, which
Yeah.
I had talked to Nick about. It was like
Yeah.
a digital production company. They were known for the show called Video Game High School.
Mhm.
And then we ended up doing a couple Hulu shows. I was the producer of this thing called the Rocket Jump Film School.
Yes.
Yeah, which is specifically about we were a bunch of film school people. Like we were all friends who had met there, and we felt with the the democratization of like film equipment, like mics, like we talked about at the beginning, or like camera phones and TikTok and YouTube and all this stuff. Like all this equipment was there that you could tell stories with. Like
Mhm.
any person could just pick up a camera and do something exciting with. But a lot of the storytelling knowledge or like filmmaking knowledge was still kind of behind these closed doors in film school.
Mhm.
So we wanted to make something that was really accessible, and these videos that kind of explain the film industry, like if you want to be a PA, what does that look like? And it can be really intimidating, all the language that you hear on a film set, and it's like, what do those things mean? Like what does cinematography tell you about stories and stuff? So we kind of made a bunch of videos about that. And then after that point, I was like, working at Rocket Jump was awesome. It was a dream job. But at some point I was like, well, I'd like to kind of get back into writing.
Mhm.
I was surrounded by all these creative people, and I'd been producing for like a little over 10 years at that point. And I was like, man, I really want to get back into like why I fell in love with all of this stuff in
Right.
the first place. And to how it leans into comics is basically one of my former coworkers at Rocket Jump, his name's Kevin Senzaki.
Mhm.
He was the sound designer there. He's a total ham. He's just brilliant. One of my really, really great friends. He had pitched me this idea for a story he had since high school. I was like, it's brilliant. I don't know if we can do it as a TV show or a movie because it's like would be $500 million.
Uh-huh.
It's like
Yeah.
it was science fiction.
Right.
And so I was like, have you thought about doing it as a comic? Or like a graphic novel? And so when he and I both left Rocket Jump, we're like, well, would you want to write this together? And so it was kind of like our passion project.
Mhm.
While we were working a bunch of jobs, we wrote this thing. We wrote 6 issues, 6 scripts. We had no idea what we were doing.
Mhm.
We're like, yeah, we'll pitch it to Image and it'll be a 60 issue ongoing, and we like they'll totally take it because it's such a good idea, and from 2 unknowns it'll just go on forever. It'll be great. So we spent all this time working on these scripts, and had some ups and downs in the comics creating business, but eventually we got to a point where we're like, we should maybe tap our network and see if we know people who can kind of help us figure out the comics industry, like take them out to lunch, ask them some questions.
Right.
And that eventually led us to Kyle.
Right.
Actually through the Corridor crew, Nick.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So we ended up getting on an email with Kyle. Kyle's really, really great. He read our first script and he was like, this is really good. This is actually really good. So he's like, yeah, let's go to lunch and I can answer some of your questions. He was really generous with his time. And then he, ended up wanting to help us with the book. So that's like some other thing going on. But eventually he asked me like, hey, I'm starting this new thing called Radiant Black. Would you be interested in co-writing an issue with me? And that ended up being issue 6.
Damn.
Okay.
So
that's so cool.
Amazing.
The up and down kind of like, that's my kind of breaking into comics story.
Right.
But it's still like, I still consider myself, it's very rare. I feel like that someone this new, like, your first book is an image book,
Right.
Yeah.
and so it's very exciting, and I have I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot, and I think that's very exciting to like be able to share like how that's happening and how that's going. It's pretty cool.
I think what is resonating for that story is like, just making the effort to like go out and try to do something, us like as content creators, we've struggled with this idea like, oh, should we wait for something to happen, or should we just go out and just like,
Seek our
start
opportunities kind of thing.
Exactly. And
very much so, yeah.
It's like, speaking from like a point of view of like, Asian creators, POC creators, it's like it's already a struggle for us sometimes, and to like get your foot in the door is a really hard thing sometimes. We've been catching ourselves like saying like, are we good enough to do this? Like, yeah, we are good enough to do this. Like, why not? Like we won't know unless we try things. And if we just keep telling ourselves like it'll come, it's never going to show up. It's more unlikely for things to show up for us. So we have to like go out there and just,
take it.
Go take it,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's that saying, like, luck is opportunity meets effort, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm messing it up a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the kind of stuff I really felt instilled in communicating when I was at Rocket Jump. There's my dog.
Fine.
I think, you're all creating right now.
Yeah.
That's what's really powerful about this, and I think that like you're exactly right. I mean, if you meet somebody who's like, yeah, I really love, your energy or what you're doing, but you don't have anything to show them, how can they help you?
Exactly, yeah.
So it is like, I think it is all about getting past all the hangups and actually sitting down and doing something, which is really hard.
Yeah.
And I think when you do make something, you should celebrate it. Like, I think every time you guys put out a podcast or a stream, you should celebrate it, because this is creation. So like, I think, and so the same applies to like a short film, a comic, like a web comic, anything. Like, I think that's what, art is incredibly powerful, and art helps us through really tough times. And, it is absolutely worth investing time into, especially as POC creators. Like, we have something so unique to say right now.
Exactly.
And even outside of being POC, like us as individuals, and so I'm just, it's super hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I think I quit Rocket Jump. I left Rocket Jump. Let's see, like 4 almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so it took time to really, I mean, it was like those first couple of years where I'm like, I'm starting over as a writer, and to like figure out the discipline to do everything. It was like really tough, but you keep pushing through and you make something, and it's some, sometimes it pays off.
Yeah.
Inspiring. I think that connects to our next question, because we do talk about representation a lot in the media we consume, whether it's books, movies, comics. What are your thoughts on the importance of representation, and how has that contributed back to like your work, your own personal work?
I'm like, I mean, representation is, it's, I mean, I think we all know it's how important it is. I mean, it's like how you just, the lens through how you see yourself in the world. And I think as Asian Americans, we were really restricted in a lot of ways, right? Like growing up, I don't know if it's as different for you guys. I grew up in like the 80s and 90s, really early 2000s. And we didn't have the conversations that we're having now. Like we had Joy Luck Club, and that was it for like the longest time. And it's so funny because my favorite movie in the world is Kiki's Delivery Service. And I know.
Yeah. It's good.
It's because I saw myself as Kiki, you know? Yeah. It really was like, oh, wow, this is like, my mom made me cut my hair short. She never let me grow it out long. And I was like, oh, this girl's on her own adventure. And I'm like, she's probably in Northern Europe or something, but I think she's Asian.
Yeah. Funny
And,
to that. It's I said on the previous podcast, like when I read Radiant Black, I was like, I'm pretty sure Marshall's like some kind of Asian. Like there's some kind of resonating factor with him. It's just like there's no way that kid is like he's like Asian coded to me.
Sure.
Just because I don't know, I just like feel it. Like I feel like I see myself in him. And then when I read issue 6, I was like, this is my life right now, because I'm also getting married and I feel the pressures of family and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is way too accurate. This is why I keep reading this book.
Those little things
like,
that just come into play.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think you know, I think you don't really notice it. You don't notice how important representation is until you like, for me, it's like, wow, seeing so much of it makes you realize the lack of it you had before.
Yeah.
Especially
you know?
recently.
Yeah.
Yes.
In like media now. It's
yeah.
It kind of hit me, I think, a couple months back, where I was like, whoa, the fact that I'm kind of fighting with people in my comment section about how it's important. And people are like, why are you fighting for it? And I'm like, because for my entire life I didn't have it, and I didn't realize that it would like affect me so much. So like, yeah, it is the little things, like with Radiant Red, seeing her in the Radiant Black comic, I was like, oh my god, she looks like me. I was like, so excited.
You know what I think is really interesting too, and I saw a lot of this like during the Ghost in the Shell conversation, even prior to that. I think it's very frustrating to see when Asian Americans, you know, I think this is a representation is very Asian American, Asian Canadian, like a Western Asian kind of thing for us to want to feel represented in our media. A lot of times when this community brings things up like representation, I think it's gotten better, but you would see a lot of people being like, shut up, this isn't important.
Yeah.
Shut up, this isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
Isn't that way interesting? Too much of that when
They're
I was
like,
talking
why
about
are you
Shang-Chi.
being so dramatic?
And
it's
like, or
seriously.
Yeah.
They're just trying to like
you
discredit you or just like undermine everything you're just trying to fight for and just state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think there's you know, to be generous to those people, I think it is like, you know, they might not realize, again, like you said, why it's important. Like Laiba, you're saying you have to tell people in your comments, this is important to me, right? This is important to us in my community. And I think it is really, really significantly improved, but it is interesting to me that you would see so many people just being like, shut up. And I was like, is this like a really Western Asian thing? Like, you know, building off our stereotype of like, hey, don't make a ruckus, you know, like don't make noise about things that matter to you. And it's so funny to me because like I know that, you know, I think representation is incredibly important, and you don't notice it until you're not like constantly, you know, flooded with mirror images of yourself all the time, you know. Like so in terms of my own work, it's so funny. Like I think I almost write I write a lot of Asian characters just because you know, I think everything I write, this is true, I think, of a lot of creators, you put a little piece of yourself into. So like Suntomi has a little piece of myself, Owen has a little piece of myself. Like some of these new characters that aren't Asian obviously are in the Radiant Red series, I put a little bit of myself.
Right. So
I don't think it's limited to that, but it is interesting that I think a lot of the things I've written, the main characters, I'm like, I see them as Asian in my mind. So, you know, you just end up writing that way. So yeah, I don't know. I think it is a nice way of infusing, you know, just adding to the representation conversation. I think Asians also is like just East Asian. We shouldn't be limited to thinking about that, obviously.
Exactly.
So that's huge, but
it is like very discrediting sometimes, like when we bring up especially like Asian issues. Like being a mixed person, I talk about both. I talk about like Latino issues and Asian issues, and I see the difference, and it feels very weird for me because like me specifically, I can talk about like how I see the differences and like how people see our problems. And it's like you said, it's very interesting that like whenever I bring up Asian issues, everyone's just like, no, you're overthinking it. Like that's not important. That's a non-problem. And it is very frustrating, and it's hard, and it's had me reevaluate a lot of the media I've consumed over the years, right? Like Rush Hour is like the perfect example, right? Like we all love Rush Hour, but you
I
can't.
know. I just watched it.
Yeah.
I still love it,
I
but
still
yeah,
love it.
I may
there's
have bought the Blu-ray recently.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's funny, but you think about like Jackie Chan bit the bullet for a lot of stereotyping.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like we can have films like Shang-Chi. We can have these movies that are not fitting in the stereotype because actors before or like representation before really bit this bullet of like, okay, we have to play into this like Hollywood mentality of what they think an Asian person is,
Yeah.
and it's like breaking down those walls now, and it's like, and no one likes it. They're like, no, what are you doing? I want my Chinese Kung Fu man. Like, stop.
Yeah.
Like, leave me alone. I want to keep that. It's like, no, that's not us. That's not just us. There's plenty more to explore. And that's, in the realm of comic books, I feel like that can move a lot faster, like in writing, because you can like throw out ideas and see how people stick to it, right? But once it hits the screen, once it hits movies and TV shows, it's like everyone's like, why are you touching the things that I like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super interesting to me that like a film and TV is still so mainstream. Like I was thinking about this. I was, because film and TV is primarily what I worked with for a long time before I came into comics, and I was like, wow, comics is really liberating in a lot of ways, because you have these smaller creative teams. You're making more stuff at a faster rate. There's less, hoops you have to jump through, and so like, yeah, there's just this wealth of ideas that you can really put out there, and it's not as big a deal. I do think it is like. Remember being frustrated by like, oh, there's not enough like representation. But then I was like reading about some Asian writers who have been writing really compelling fiction, like really intricate Asian stories. And I was like, I've never heard of this because I don't read enough fiction.
Yeah.
So I was like, I think like people who only watch movies and TV might not realize all the incredibly representative, like interesting, complicated, in-depth things that are happening in comics or in other medias.
That's exactly how I felt reading Radiant Black.
Like
also going back to representation, I think it also comes with being a woman, because I like growing up I've never seen like a woman superhero. And it also goes back to when you try to fight for, something different and have a woman be, not a damsel in distress. And that's kind of what I love about Satomi, because like she kind of took charge.
Yeah.
She's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it myself.
Yeah,
pretty much.
That's the last line.
I was like, hell yeah.
It's the last line, and she says,
Yeah,
I handled it.
I handled it. Yeah,
Oh, man.
I loved
Like,
it so much.
I love that. That means so much. I mean, it's a real testament. I will say, when I came on to Radiant Black, Kyle was already like, oh, it's, Radiant Red is gonna be Satomi. That's kind of the, like the twist. Spoiler alert. There's all this stuff established, but it was very cool being able to have like the leeway to build her out and to like really flesh her out in a way that was like, we hear a lot about, strong female characters, and I think that a lot of people hear that and then they really put that into like it, and can end up into like Mary Sue territory, like a perfect character that has no flaws, who's like very brave, and those are all qualities that are really interesting in certain ways, like if you build out a three-dimensional character. But for me, I was like, what makes Satomi so interesting is that she is like really aggro in a lot of ways, and really challenges that Asian woman demure, like, but also not a dragon lady, type of thing that she just feels very real to me. She's like she's got big parts of me. She's got parts of like women I know, people I know that are just she's her own person, and like she's the main character. She's not the side character,
right?
She's super visible, and it's just very exciting to be able to do that.
I think we noticed that and that's why we resonate with these characters. That's why I resonate with these characters specifically, because like props to Kyle for like understanding, like, if we're gonna have an Asian character, let's get an Asian writer, and having that stance and understanding how much that can impact somebody, because it makes it feel real, right? Like if Kyle had just written this character and was like, you could probably feel that like this was not in a genuine state of like, if this came from some like an Asian woman, you would know. And I think that's something that we appreciate like as readers, that we pick up on those small details and we know that like these aren't how people really are. But when you hear it from the voices that are meant to be on that panel, it means so much more. And that means the world to a lot of different people. Yeah, I think that's amazing that Radiant Black can do that your team and Image Comics can do that. It's really amazing. So
I gotta ask, because like you mentioned that like throwing a piece of yourself into these characters you write is like a big part of what you do. But like, what kind of attracted you to Radiant Black, like the universe at least, and like what kind of excites you the most about the potential of expanding to something bigger, such as like you mentioned, movies, television, video games, or like even toys or stuff like that?
So what attracted to me to it is like I'm basically in a unique scenario where I get to work in a very new property at a very early stage. So I kind of mentioned this in other things, but working within the larger universe is like helps generate new ideas for me rather than like feel like I'm being limited in any way. So like I actually think like as a writer, like certain boundaries are good, like knowing that you have to write within a certain context is can be really actually like more creative a lot of the times. So I think I feel that way about being in the writing in the Radiant Black universe, and I think like I'm also given a lot of room. Like our whole creative team is given a lot of room to kind of try different things and kind of push what we're interested in. And in terms of like where this can all go, I mean, it's just this is kind of a thing with Kyle, is that everyone is always like talking to him. Any of us, like Matt talks about this, Matt Groom, who is on Inferno Red. Michael is always exhausted because Kyle has 1,000 ideas.
Yeah.
Like every time you talk to him, something new is happening and he's like catching you up on it. And it's very cool.
I feel that.
Yeah.
That's usually our group as well.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
It is. Yeah. Super exciting.
Yeah. So, there's so much room for where all this is going to go. I can't really speak
can't
to
reveal too much.
Yeah.
Any other media things and plans going on, but there's things going, and I think that like Kyle steering so much of this as his vision in terms of where it could go is like I think it's a lot bigger than any of the fans realize.
Yeah.
So
that's exciting.
That's really cool. and then again, like having the freedom to kind of like create work our Satomi's corner of all this is like really liberating. It's very, very fun.
I always make this joke, like, because there's always, whenever someone like recommends like, or whenever I recommend like Radiant Black, or I hear people recommend Radiant Black, it's like, oh, it's kind of like Invincible and like Spider-Man. And I'm like, yeah. If it ever became the next Invincible, like on Amazon or something, like an animated series, like I will be that guy that's like, yeah, I was there. I remember. I remember when this was like 12 issues in. I will be that guy.
You get to be. You get to brag.
Yeah,
be like that. I was the original Radiant Black hipster. Or
yeah,
whatever,
dude. I was on Team Marshall before Marshall showed up. But yeah, that's super exciting to hear. We've seen more Asian represented people work behind the scenes. We've had like directors like Chloe Zhao, Alyssa Wong, who's currently writing for Iron Fist. How do you feel being part of this like new wave of like diverse writers moving forward with like showing like speaking your voice and stuff like that? Like how does that make you feel, and what do you hope to like achieve moving forward with your voice in this like new wave of not just Asian creators but like more diverse writers, right?
Yeah, it's super exciting. I try not to dwell too much on it in terms of like the pressure side of it, right? I think the angle I really take on it is like to be truly representative is being like true to your own voice, right? So like I'm not going to. I honestly think when I hear a lot of like when I'm reading a lot about the cultural stuff that a lot of Asian Americans, Asian Canadians, the Asian diaspora go through. I was like, in a lot of ways, the way I grew up, I don't relate to that as much always, because again, I mentioned earlier, like I was raised by a single mother. She was incredibly supportive of me going into the arts. She's like, as long as you're good. She's like, just be good at it, and then like I support you, or if you work hard at it, and then my mom was also like, she immigrated here when she was 18, so she's like in a lot of this interesting amalgamation of like very Western and Eastern like kind of philosophies too. And then my mom was really, really rebellious as a young person. So like I didn't have any pressure to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer. And I don't get like sad or pressure. I'm like, when I hear about people being jerks to Asian Americans, I get like pissed.
Yeah, no, we all get mad.
Same.
We all get mad.
Especially lately.
Yeah. I'm just like, how dare you? Like, you want to come at me? Like, I'll take you down,
That's
like,
what we've made a platform on TikTok. We literally just yell at people. I yell at
That's
people.
your platform, Nick.
I
That's
yell at
yours.
people like if you ever go on my TikTok, it's literally just like 80% of the page is like me yelling about Asian representation or like me screaming at somebody about it, and then like it's another like 8% Robbie Reyes, and then the 2%
8%.
yeah, it's 8%
scientifically and calculated at this point.
and the rest is Radiant Black at an astounding 20%. I'm not good at math, okay? Like it's a whole thing.
Asians don't have to be good at math.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't have to be good.
We're not monolithic,
Look,
right?
numbers aren't real. They're just a construct, okay? Like it's not.
Math
not
is a
real.
construct, says Nick.
There is nothing in nature that says 2 + 2 = 4. It's just a way of understanding, and if that's true, it's not real. That's my.
Oh, that's a hot take.
That's
gonna be your hot take.
Clearly, you don't look at our viewership numbers enough, or else you would care more.
Yeah, it's true. Everyone now thinks I'm an idiot.
Hey, just lean into you're a creative person. But yeah, I'm like, I'm like, I don't have these hangups where I get sad about it. I just get like really pissed, and I'm like, just try and come at me, right? So I was like, anyway, I think that like, a lot of that gets into like the characters I want to write. It's like I write a lot about female rage, and I think being able to do that in an Asian character woman is like really exciting,
really liberating too, right?
Yeah.
Art. Yeah. I mean, like David just executed this, like
it's amazing.
I love it. Yeah. So David and Mikkel just did all this, and so I just that's kind of my. I just want to write from that place. What interests me as an artist, as a writer, and that because of my background, because of my culture, that's all going to naturally be infused. Like how I feel about family, how I feel about being out in the world, and all this stuff is how we are raised or how we are culturally brought up. All of that is informed by that.
I think what I love about that though is like, because like one of the stereotypes is that Asians are timid, we keep to ourselves, we're quiet, we're not rebellious. So like to have this furious Asian female character is just such a flip of the stereotype, and it's just I love that so much when I was reading issue number 6.
Yeah, that means it means a lot to me, because it's like those are the women I grew up with. I'm like, this is like how I feel. Like if I were gonna this is gonna sound funny. If I were gonna describe myself within 3 words, like opinionated would definitely be one of them. And I see that as like a compliment to myself. Like I think like being opinionated is how I get to move through the world in the way I do. And I I can make decisions based off of my opinions. So I just think that I'm okay with that being controversial or not. I don't, likable or unlikable. I think it's just who I am. Right.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think that gets infused into like, the characters I write. Definitely Satomi.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, like let's, those things that we naturally are, like, let's put that into our art, and
yeah, that's something everyone like appreciates, even though like they might not like fully understand it, and it's like the genuine nature of like where it's coming from, because that's something I've noticed in your writing and something I've noticed in Kyle's writing. It's like it's I don't know the pinpoint moment, I don't know the exact words or how to describe it to somebody. Like this feels so different, but like when I explain it to people, it's like this sounds so generic. And it's like in the case of your writing, it's like, well, that's because I've been around these people my entire life. In the case of like when I'm talking about like Radiant Black or like Marshall or Nathan's character, it's like it sounds like a typical superhero story, right? But then it's the real small details that really elevate the storytelling, like Nathan's conversation with his dad about finding a job, and it's like
Yeah.
that's something you can't explain to somebody. Like you got to just read it and like experience it. Having to be in like so much debt, having the pressures of your family and going through marriage. It's like, oh my God, I can't explain this to somebody. And then they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. It's like, no, you got to like experience it.
Yeah.
You have to really dig into it. And it's like, Laiba just read it, right? And she just
I finished
just read
today
it,
and I was
yeah.
like, Nick, I can't believe you're right.
Yeah. And it's like you can't pinpoint those moments of like what makes this series good. I don't know, like a million things, and I can't.
Just need to read it.
I that's not good enough for a lot of people. Sometimes it's like I don't want to read it, and I was like, well, just do it. Like I can't. I don't want to do it. I'm so conflicted when I talk about it like on TikTok because it's like I don't want to give away details of the story because like I really believe people should just like go buy this book. People should go support this team. And it's like frustrating. It's like I don't want to talk about the major details, what makes it cool. I just talk about the flashy stuff, all the Power Ranger stuff that I really enjoy.
The transformations and
the transformations. You guys, oh man, they're so cool. Yeah.
I think it is difficult because like so much of the core of it is just being really grounded and relatable to today, to people's problems today, real people problems. And that is kind of hard to explain or sell to someone. It's like, why would I read about someone in debt when I'm like, I don't want to read about debt, But I think about a lot of what Kyle said. I remember when Radiant Black was first starting to come out, and he was like, the book isn't about me, but there's a lot of me in it.
Right.
And I think that's how I feel about my character, about writing Satomi. And I think that is maybe what the readers connect to too. Like this book isn't directly about any of us, but it feels like a lot of us are in it. Yeah, it is a hard book to sometimes pitch, but yeah, I feel like the superpower stuff and the just like black holes and maybe space armies or whatever. I don't know, like that might be the thing to get people in.
That's my thing about powers now. When I look at like superpowers, it's like it should be an extension of like who the character is to really like deliver like the message of like how important those powers are to that character. So like in the case of Satomi, like you say, she's like a very rageful, or like she has stories about rage and she's angry and she's mad. That doesn't make her a hateful character or anything, but that is like a real emotion she feels, and it's like exemplified through her powers. It's like she wants to be strong enough because she kind of has to be, and that resonates with again like with me. In the case of like Marshall's character, he has like we don't really know, like his powers kind of like range between like standard like flight, levitation, stuff like that, but he himself is like trying to discover like what all of this means. And I think that kind of contributes back to like how we see ourselves like on these characters, and it's always like very cool to see.
Kind of makes them human if you think about it.
Oh yeah,
like
super human.
The way Satomi is very rageful and that like affects her powers, it kind of makes them really authentic and human. And that kind of connects to our next question, where Radiant Black has a really diverse cast of characters. This behind me is actually my favorite moment because I was like, whoa, who are these guys? I was like, what?
Yeah, great moment.
Yeah, so it has a really diverse cast of characters, and you write Satomi. So what is your contribution to the character as a co-writer? Like you said, you do put like a little bit of yourself into it. But yeah.
Well, I can kind of talk about the process through which we kind of came in. So like when I started on 6, she was already Japanese American, and the kind of setup I'm trying to think what I can actually talk about, but like there was this kind of setup. She had the name, and then she had this relationship Owen, that we were kind of like figuring out what the conflict was that was going on. So a lot of that in writing six together, Kyle and I really hammered out like, okay, what is the pressing issue in her life? And
Right.
we landed on Owen having this gambling problem,
Mhm.
and how that was like turning the screws on everything going on in her life.
Right.
A big central point of like one of the first images that came to us was it's like this big Thanksgiving dinner. Like family was a big part of her life,
Mhm.
a big part of Satomi's life. And I remember like, oh, it'll be so interesting to cut from that panel where they look all happy. They're the perfect couple.
Oh my god, I love that panel. I love those two.
Yeah.
I love those two
Yeah.
panels. I've definitely
And then
lived that, like where you go in, you have a front, right? To make your
Yeah.
family happy. And then you're in the car and you're like, I'm so tired.
What
or
the
like,
hell?
I'm stressed out,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
man, that lives in my head rent free.
Yeah. Yeah. That page turned into being like, wow, okay, they're not like, there's all this stuff going on with them, that is like just bubbling under the surface. That was really, that was at the forefront of my head quite a bit. Like I wanted to kind of do this. I thought that was a big part of her character. Like you want to put up this brave front for your family. You have all this pressure to be really, really strong for your family. And like I think a lot of like Asian families are like really selective with the information we tell each other because we don't want to make each other upset or stress each other
I've
out.
got a safe face, as my
Yeah.
family says. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny too because like so many like so much of Asian culture is so like brutally honest at the same time in a way that a lot of Western culture isn't. So it's so funny to me, that contrast. This is like basically what the farewell was about. You don't tell your grandmother that she has cancer and is dying.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that
Oh
hits
my
home.
gosh.
Right? It's so interesting to me, like this contrast of brutally honest and then like this mask, this veneer. But so yeah, I remember Kyle and I really, really fleshing out like the plot, like a big part of the characters of like, what she's going through, what is her central problem, and how that leads her to rob a bank, and eventually multiple banks. That was like the hardest thing about her character is everyone's really grounded, everyone's really relatable, but we do have it is set up and established that she needs to be robbing a bank.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you make robbing a bank relatable and understandable and something you empathize with? So it was tricky, but I was like, we really hashed that out together.
And I think,
and then,
okay.
Go ahead, please.
I really like that contrast between her and Nathan, and how Nathan is like, oh, I have these powers now. I'm going to use it to like, fix my writing or like inspire or like be a hero, as opposed to Satomi, who's like, I'm gonna go rob a bank. And I think about like, I'd probably might be Satomi in this situation,
Me
because
too.
capitalism is just awful sometimes, and it can be brutal for people who are like just struggling, right? And it's like, I don't fault her for it, for feeling that way. Like that's her out solution. Like, especially when you have powers that are like deeply rooted in strength. It's like, who's going to stop you? No one's going to stop you.
And you feel like you can hide,
yeah,
like she changes her body,
exactly.
like it's not, it's like, again, it's something I say, like, I don't condone it, but we try to make it understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
And also she gets like fucked by the bank. So you're like,
yeah,
fuck this
exactly.
bank.
It's kind of like a good for her moment.
Yeah.
Like, go best friend.
Go.
Gaslight girl boss.
Yeah, it's like, get it. Get it. Screw the bank.
Yeah.
But I think in this, in the mini series, it really is an extension of Six, is how I like to think of it, because
good,
it's really it's she's going on a new thing that's happening to her, but it is like all the things we really planted in Six. I was like, well, there's so much more here. Like I say, there's a lot of meat on the story bone, and so it really is us continuing a lot of things into the miniseries, and it's really nice to be able to be back with the core creative team and then be able to have 5 issues to like. I mean, we really try to make issue 6 like stand on its own, so that's like, okay, this feels satisfying. I'm not like, we're not leaving you all hanging, as readers. So we wanted to make it feel good by itself, but like being able to have 5 issues and really like
Expand on it a little bit.
Expand
Yeah.
her relationships, all this stuff, her family, new characters, old characters that show up. Not old characters, but familiar faces.
Right,
right.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right.
I gotta ask though, because like going from just co-writing issue number 6 for Radiant Black to writing this miniseries now, like, what's the difference? Like, what's the process like between the two?
So kind of what happened was, I think I can talk about this, is that after we wrote 6, Kyle was like, pitch me what you think a miniseries would look like.
Oh.
And so I did. I had an idea for something, and so I sent it to him, and then he's like, yeah, let's see if we can get this made. And this is kind of what I'm talking about when I'm like, I feel like, you know, bringing, as a writer, being able to bring ideas, like, you know, I'm responsible for those ideas, being able to bring them to somebody who's very open and is going to advocate for them is really, really cool. So yeah, kind of working out that outline was something I made. It's like, I think Satomi is someone I feel comfortable writing. I think there's like, you know, there's a back and forth on making things intersect with the larger, with, you know, with the main series, and exciting ways to do that. You know, those are always really fun to think about how, okay, you know, like what can we expand on that's like happening in Radiant Black, but now it's like maybe showing up in Radiant Red, and like, you know, I was like, I'll have to talk to you all when the whole series is done, because then
please.
I can just talk about
please
it.
come back.
We'll book
No,
you
absolutely.
in the moment issue 5 is out.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's like I have to talk around so many things. This is like the trouble
No,
with
that's fair.
promoting. But yeah, it's being the writer on this, like, I'm, you know, given a lot of free reign, but it is also, you know, that we still, like, I show the draft, and then we still have this like conversation about how to, like, okay, there's a big exchange of ideas, and it's really exciting and fun. It's not like, oh, this is stressful or I'm limited by anything. It's like, yeah, do your first pass and let's see how it works. And it's like, it's really fun. I mean, it's very, very cool. Yeah, I'm trying to feel like,
Yeah, no. We don't want you to
don't
traverse
wanna
too
pry too
hard.
much.
You know, that's a lot of, like, we don't want you to, what's his name? Tom Holland, the
Oh my
interview.
God.
Yeah, we don't
I was
want
like,
you to
I
that.
do
Don't do
not
that.
want to Tom Holland
No,
anything.
please do
Oh,
not.
poor Tom.
No,
know.
we'll stray away from like talking too in depth about like what the future holds for Satomi.
I'm happy to hint at things, but you know.
Right, yeah.
Mm.
But like, you know, speaking about like the cultural element of her character, I've always heard that writing from experience has always been, you know, the best writing tip anybody ever says about writing. How do you feel like you've incorporated a lot of those like cultural elements into her character? We do see that a little bit, like we talked about a little bit, about how her interactions with her family might seem, how you're like straying away from like these stereotypes of her just being like what we've seen in media already. But are we going to see a little bit more about her culture like moving forward? Are we going to see a little bit more about her living dynamic in terms like of her, you know, relationship, meeting Owen, stuff like that? Is that something that we're going to be looking forward to a little bit?
I think you definitely get a little bit more of her past, especially in issue 1.
Yeah.
I will say that. And I think how culture informs any of us, like, you know, who are raised as Asian American, Asian Canadian, Asian diaspora. I keep saying all three, but it's okay. How am I going to say this? Like, I think that us being real people, right? Like Satomi, I really want to make her feel real, not just like something that's presented for media. We have grown up consuming media or internalizing what people think of us or how our families are tell us to behave. You know, like we do kind of take all this in, and it kind of informs how we move about the world. I think getting older and having these conversations makes us more self-aware of those things and how we want to challenge those things, how we want to, you know, how we examine ourselves. So I think all of that, like, I think Satomi in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm being really like esoteric, but like,
no, it's okay.
Satomi, you know, in a lot of ways, I think is very restrained.
Right.
You know, and I think that that's that's the contrast with when she gets mad.
Yeah.
You know, like she lashes out at people, and because you're like restraint, you know, like I think this restraint is something that I feel as an Asian American. You know, like I constantly wonder, am I holding myself back, you know, from like
Yeah.
expressing
No.
what I really
Yeah.
feel about something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you all feel, I mean,
No,
do you
yeah,
all,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
definitely know what you mean.
It
Yeah.
seems like, you know, growing up, you're always told to like act a certain way. Like you don't say
Yeah.
that, you don't talk about that.
You
And
have to
then
save face.
yeah, and like, you
Mhm.
know, as I got older and like started living on my own and experiencing life, it's like, why not though? Like, why do I have to be so reserved all the time? Why?
Mhm.
What is holding me back from expressing my opinion or expressing how I feel? Like, why is that such a bad thing? Um, and that was like, I feel like that's like my biggest thing in like my own personal relationship with my fiance is like, I'm very open about how I feel about things, right? And you know, like as a man, sometimes you're told like you don't have to tell her that. Like, why not though? Like, why can't I do that? It just seems like it complicates things. Like if I don't, and having the ability to just be like, well, just because someone told me so, or just because like I was conditioned to believe that, doesn't mean it's the right thing. It doesn't mean that I have to follow those procedures. Just because, again, I've been conditioned to believe this is how the world works. Why does the world work this way? I always ask why. I keep asking why. Like, why are we like this? Why do we do this? Why do we have to act a certain way? Just because people presume that about me? That doesn't have to be that way.
And I think a lot of like, there's plenty of probably Asian individuals who don't relate to this at all, you know, but I do think like if we're just talking about very like broad cultural strokes, you know, this, I do think restraint or like, you know, not making a lot of noise, not being too visible. A lot of this stuff is kind of, you know, if you study history of, you know, Asian immigrants coming into new countries and stuff like that, you know, like a lot of, you can understand why it's like you don't make a big deal about a lot of this stuff. But we being born here or like you know, coming here at younger ages, the conversation is just being different, like that is going to change how we move about the world. I say all this to basically be like, I think these are a lot of the same things Satomi thinks about and how she moves through the world, and that's how like culture and how you're raised, your values, rooted in cultural stuff, you know, like that's how it presents in her. And then but I'm like, well, you still feel human emotions, you know, like sadness, anger, you know, like regret. So that's kind of how I've wanted to write her, you know, like it's that's how the culture kind of informs her and how she behaves. And I will also add one note, which is that David is incredible at being able to draw that, which is very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Having an artist who can like convey like a lot through silence and expression, and like restraint is not an easy thing to draw, you know.
It was like such a perfect choice for him to do that because like it's kind of cute, you know, the color selection is cute and it's like it's very like pastel-y, but it's also aggressive. And it's like the perfect mix of exactly like what you're trying to convey in the story. It's like, so tell me, is this character who's presumed to be like, you know, please her family, a good wife, stuff like that, but underneath she's mad and she's angry at the world, at her husband, everything. And it's just like, yeah, like it's such a perfect fit. Like all the art in the Radiant Black series has been absolutely phenomenal. There's like a level of passion in there that exists that I can't like find in a lot of other books sometimes. And it's just because I feel like this is a project that is just like made out of passion. I know Image does a different way of like supporting their creators, which I think is fantastic in comparison to like the rest of the comic book industry. And I really feel like that shows a lot, especially in this series.
For me, like my personal monitor of success when it comes to this project is obviously, you know, you want to put something out that people like, but for me it's like if I'm writing stuff that the creative team they feel accomplished and proud of, like if I'm writing something that David and Mikkel you know, ultimately it's a layup for them to make something they're really proud of, then I consider like that a good job on my part. So that's all I'm hoping for, and then it's like, yeah, I mean, Mikkel doing these colors, like this is so saturated, you know what I
it's
mean?
good.
It's like so
Yeah.
it's so powerful, but it has its very own visual identity in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it's because we're given the free reign to do that, which is cool.
I really do love how like yours just stands out from the rest of Radiant Black at the same time, right? Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Laiba?
Without like spoiling anything, because
Cool.
I don't want to get anything.
I think
over me.
okay.
I was just gonna ask, like, what do you hope to accomplish for Satomi in the terms of like the message that she is getting out there, and that doesn't just like contribute to the comics, but like media itself. So like like you said, breaking more stereotypes, that she's not this like petite like shy girl, like she's small, but she has a lot of rage and she has a lot of thoughts and opinions. And
arguably the strongest Radiant, probably.
Definitely the most badass looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and her like Owen is like this big strong guy, but she's kind of the one that's supporting, and she wears the pants in this relationship.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
she does. Absolutely.
I think she's on a journey to discover she's wearing the pants
Yeah.
in some ways, Yeah, I was thinking about I read this newsletter that the sociologist Nancy Yuen Wang, I believe is her name. She tweets a lot and does a lot of like work kind of analyzing representation of Asian representation in media. She talks about it a lot. And she had written this newsletter kind of about Asians in superhero stories, and kind of like wanting more a bigger range and a bigger like diversity of character, I think Chloe Zhao making Eternals is really great, but the sociologist did mention in the newsletter, like in some ways Gemma Chan's character does kind of fall into some of these, like, I think they were doing something really interesting for a big superhero movie, which is like your main character is really driven by empathy and like not brute strength and all this stuff. But in some ways it does kind of fall into demure Asian woman not wanting to make a big fuss, just like being very loving. And so I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I'm like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like that doesn't have to be that is one representation, right? It just can't be our entire representation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that's such a hard idea to convey to people who like don't get it. It's like what you think like one character is going to represent every idea that we have to feel. Like, no, we are complex people. We are complex culture.
And like Asian is just more than you're Chinese, you're Japanese, you're Korean.
And that's why it's so frustrating when people are like, oh, but we already made Shang-Chi. Like, that's it.
I remember that.
26 films. You got one. Just be quiet now.
We all come from like different backgrounds. And I usually say this where you like, I personally, like when I post on my TikTok page, like when I post content, I usually don't speak for other people. I speak for myself because I speak from my own experiences. And hopefully like if I, like when I start writing, I put myself into my writing and I put myself into my art. Hopefully one day when it gets like put out there, someone can relate to it,
That's exactly right. I mean, all we can do is represent us as individuals, and moving forward to be able to to have the platform to be able to like reach people. That was the problem for the longest time, right? It was like we weren't even given the platform to make our art,
given the chance.
Yes, to like be representative of our individual takes and opinions and views on the world. So with Satomi, she's another representation, another individual out there. But I did want to write something that felt very real, very, very just contrasted the stereotype in a way that wasn't another stereotype. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, to me, I was like, when I talk about like, oh, stereotypes or whatever, it's just like, to me, Satomi just feels like a real person. Right. And I'm just trying to write as authentically to decisions she would make, choices she would make, you know, her problems, her flaws, her strengths, you know, and just like view it really as that. And inherently her culture, her background, that's all going to inform who she is, because that's how it is for any of us,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
like no matter what your background is.
Cool.
I just gotta ask with like doing Radiant right now, even though it's a 5-issue miniseries, like what's your favorite part of it? And like, is there even gonna be more maybe? kind of thing.
Tell us everything.
Tell us everything.
There's so
Without
many
spoiling.
there's so many fun parts about it.
Oh, that's so fun.
Y'all, it's like
I just adore the comic book making process, you know, because like working in the comic shop and all that, it's amazing just hearing about it.
it's so fun. I mean, it's like you know, coming from film and TV in some ways, I'm like, I think it's really, there's a gratification to comics that you just don't get, because it is a smaller team, but you know, the turnaround can be a lot faster, even though, you know, like art takes a lot of time and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it's so rewarding in some ways, and like being able to work really closely with, you know, a smaller team is very cool, to be exchanging ideas like that. My favorite part of it is something I can't really tell you yet, but there is a character that shows up in one, their identity gets revealed in two.
Oh, okay.
And writing that character with Satomi is so fun.
Oh man,
I look forward to
that's
it.
exciting.
And that's the tea.
And that's the
listening
tea,
to
everybody.
Voices of Atlas.
It is. I have the most fun writing these scenes, and in terms of like just getting the art back, honestly, like everything from David and Mikkel is like a little magical gift in my inbox. Like it's just really cool. And even David's layouts, because you know he does layouts first.
Yeah.
He conveys so much in the layouts, and it is, I remember when we were working on 6, that was my first time working with David, and you know, we wrote the script, all this dialogue and whatever, and then like David just, you know, sends us the pages with no bubbles or anything, and you're like, this is what it's like working with a sequential artist of his level, because it's like you don't even need words to like really follow this story.
Yeah,
it's incredible. So yeah, the process is just so fun.
Yeah,
Fair.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're wrapping up for the rest of the episode. I just do have one question. Last one. You can ask it real quick. So we know you're writing for Radiant Red. That's an exciting future project that we're all excited to read. Do you have any other upcoming projects, or would you ever aspire to maybe write for somebody else like Marvel or DC? And if you did, like, who would you want to write for?
So let me take this in pieces. So in terms of other projects, I do have some things I want to pitch. So we'll see what happens with any of that stuff. I do really want to write. I'll speak this out into the universe. I really want to write something for Venom.
Oh, okay. We're a big fan of Venom here.
We love Venom.
We love Venom here.
I love Donny Cates' most recent run.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I you know, Venom. I have an idea for Venom that I really, really want to do.
Okay.
So I'm speaking that into the universe. I haven't like really said that anywhere before, so we'll see what happens.
Speak it out. Speak it out.
Yeah,
this is a Atlas exclusive, everybody. Right?
Yeah.
There's one thing the Voice of Atlas is good for. It's manifesting.
We'll be that guy when your name is on a Venom title. It's like we knew. We had
that exclusive right there. Like we had it right here the whole time.
You guys are ahead of it. Yeah, I haven't really said that into any sort of public space yet. So,
fair.
I have this Venom idea. I really, really would love to do. But I haven't. You know, I have to like. I'm actually wrapping up Red right now, so I would have to finish that out.
Yeah.
And then be able to move on to other things. I think I mentioned this, Nick, in our email, but this is like, if you're in LA, I did co-write something with my partner Will Campos for this basically a children's musical event at the Walt Disney Hall.
Okay.
But yeah, it plays on April 26th and March 26th and April 2nd.
Okay.
2 Saturdays. And it's just a very fun show. It's like kids, this band from Brooklyn called People of Earth are putting on like an educational show about Cuban music, Cuban music. So it's like kind of an interactive thing for kids and their families. it was very fun to do. It's kind of like a Peter and the Wolf thing.
Okay.
So if you're in LA and like want to learn about Cuban music, music.
I live in LA, so I'll probably go by.
Nick, you're probably
Yeah.
gonna see Nick there.
Yeah, I'll probably be
Yeah.
there. I think.
Well, you gotta give me a shout if you do.
I will, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very non-comics thing, but
Yeah.
just a random side thing that we had a lot of fun on. So
Right, yeah.
figured to put that out
That's
there.
a perfect segue to wrap up our show.
Be sure to check that out, guys.
Yeah, be sure to check that out, guys.
Especially if you have young children.
Yes, please.
Or
Cherish,
if you're Nick.
where can people follow you? Where can people keep up with you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Cherish Chen. I always say this. I'm a weirdo on Twitter. I'm really sporadic. I was like, don't follow me if you don't want to. But I was like, I usually in non comic book mode, I'm always just reposting weird animals and stuff.
Oh,
But yeah, you can find me there. I'd love to hear what people think about Red when it comes out. So please, message
I'll tweet
me.
at you.
yes.
Please do. I know. I was
absolutely.
I'm really excited to hear what people think. So
Yeah.
I'll tag you in our little giveaway too for it.
Which, by the way, guys, we are
we are doing a giveaway.
Yeah, we are doing
We are doing that.
a Radiant Red giveaway on the release of Radiant Red.
I've got 10 copies
to just
with
give
unknown
away.
names on them yet.
Yeah, it's just
So,
giveaway.
Keep an eye out on our stuff.
What is
for
it? What did we get? The B cover? I really like the B cover.
I got the A cover.
Oh, the A cover. Right. Okay, got it. It was the B
No,
cover.
and
the
one C cover because it's
Yeah.
black.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was gonna draw on that for the blank. That
oh,
one's for
that's
me.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, look forward to that, guys. After our Turning Red giveaway, we're probably gonna focus on that since when's the release date for first issue of Radiant Red? I know there's been a little bit of a
March 9th.
March 9th. All right, fantastic.
Next Wednesday.
That's what
March
League of
9th.
Comic Geeks keeps telling me. So
All right.
Yeah, it is. It's next Wednesday.
Yeah, these are all sitting at the top of my pull list. I think majority of all of my comics is Image and Boom. It's all just
I
Power
remember
Rangers.
you revealing that.
Yeah, it's all just Power Rangers, Radiant Black, and that's it.
Ultraman, maybe?
Probably.
I don't know.
Is Ultraman running right now?
Not that I
think so.
think.
Yeah, I think
no.
it might be over.
Yeah.
I think
so-
Higgins took a break from that.
I have Iron Fist on there though. So
Yeah.
but everyone else, thank you so much for coming to our show. You can follow us on the Voices of Atlas on all platforms. We worked really hard to make that happen. So it's very easy for everyone to find us. Thank you again, Cherish, for coming on our show. We're gonna
Thanks
do
for
our
having
little,
me.
So grateful.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Do a little
Love
was
to
a
have you on
breeze.
again.
Yeah, it was like the time flew by. So
Yeah.
you're
Oh,
all
yeah.
great hosts.
Thank you.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. I am Amazing Nikendra. You can catch me on all of social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter. I've been posting a lot of Radiant Black art. I've been posting. This is big inspiration for me. So, also shout outs to the Existence Discord. I'm gonna put that in the link in the
Yeah,
description.
please do.
Yeah, we have a ton of people that are just hanging out in there. I'm on there every day. I haven't been on there this week because I haven't read Rogue Sun yet. Which, by the way, you should all read Rogue Sun. That one's also a great book to pick up, part of the Radiant Black universe. But yeah, I've just been drawing nonstop on my breaks. I started a new job, so I'm just drawing between breaks.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, Nick's art is really, really very special.
Oh,
so
thank you.
I hope you keep making
It's
stuff.
so
Yeah,
good.
it's very cool.
I'm looking at your Radiant Red art right now, and I just love it.
Yeah.
I have
really good.
Nick's art behind me. He did a bunch of Spider-Man art.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
Just
yeah.
for
bought it
No
off
Home.
For No Way
Redbubble.
Home, yeah. But yeah, you can follow me on all those platforms. Amazing Kendra. Laiba.
Have been Laiba Hazara. I'm also known as Mixed and Anxious on TikTok, and I will soon be posting about Radiant Red because I'm blaming Nick
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Cherish. I'll blame you too.
Don't worry,
Take
Laiba. Wait till
responsibility.
volume 2 of Radiant Black comes out.
Yeah.
And I am the Marvelous Johnny, just Marvelous Johnny, not the, I don't know why I keep doing that. That's Marvelous with 2 L's though, because Canadian spelling. And y'all can find me on TikTok, Instagram with an underscore between Marvelous and Johnny. And I think it's just Marvelous underscore JC
Yeah.
on Twitter. Y'all can find me shit posting on there. I recently got blocked by Gina Carano in
Oh.
less than an hour.
That's
and that
fun.
was an achievement for me.
He was speedrunning it, you know? It
I was speedrunning.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Dang.
yeah, so make sure to follow all of us. I think that is everything.
Go pick up Radiant Red
pick up
on
Radiant
March
Red.
9th.
Yeah,
if you have a
absolutely.
chance, pick up Supermassive, Rogue Sun.
Supermassive was good.
Radiant
All that.
Black.
If you haven't read Radiant Black Volume 1, Nick's the guy to go to if you need
Absolutely.
some.
Do
If you need
it.
something to
fan.
motivate you.
Read it.
All these links will be found in the description of the show, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, and on Apple. If you give us 5 stars, we'll love you forever.
Yeah.
We are looking for reviews. Tell us what you like about the show. Tell us what you don't like about the show, and we will read them out here live. So that's a lot of fun. But thank you everyone again for showing up. We appreciate every single one of you, and we will see you again next time. All right, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.